open this regular meeting of the Ottawa City Commission. The date is January 15, 2020. And we ask to call the roll.
Mayor Weigand.
Here.
Commissioner Kaler.
Present.
Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Present.
Okay, all commissioners present. We want to welcome those who are with us today, as well as those who are watching us on social media. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for the Reverend Ernest Jones to give the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we thank you for this day that you have given us. God, we pray that you continue to keep your hands upon us. Watch over this commission. God, continue to lead and guide us as a community. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. We have the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from the December 16th study session, the December 18th regular meeting, and the December 23rd study session, and the January 6th study session. Do I have a motion to approve the?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Kaler has moved, and Commissioner Crowley has seconded. Is there any other discussion? I would call the roll.
Okay. How do you vote, Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley.
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Yes.
Mayor Weigand.
And I vote yes. Motion approved. Okay. Have we got any public comments this morning?
No one has
We
registered.
have none, so we'll dispense with the reading of that, those rules. At this time, I'd like to ask the commissioners to give, if they have any chance to declare any conflict or communications they've had that might influence their ability to consider any of today's issues. Seeing none? Okay, we have an item 10.
Introduction of new employee.
Michael Halfway.
Morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I want to take this time to introduce Hannah Lewis. She is our stormwater coordinator. She's been with us now for about a week and a half. She spent the last 3 to 4 years working for KDHE in regulatory compliance, and originally hails from Louisiana. So I just wanted to introduce you to her with this position. Felt it was pertinent that you all knew who was working your stormwater issues for you. So, yeah.
Just want to say good morning and thank you for this opportunity to become the city's stormwater coordinator. So if you have questions or obviously come by my office, I'd like to meet you all. So thank you very much.
Just one comment, being from Louisiana, you should know all about stormwater.
I do. Exactly.
And college football.
Yes, exactly. Go Tigers.
Well, welcome. Welcome. Okay. Item 11.
A proclamation recognizing Catholic Schools Week.
Catholic Schools Week is celebrated nationally the last week in January. This year, that week is January 26th and February through February 1. This year's theme is Catholic Schools: Learn, Serve, Lead, Succeed. This proclamation that recognizes the contributions of Sacred Heart School, its students and alumni to our community. Angie Doherty, third grade teacher at Sacred Heart School, and her students will accept the proclamation, and Commissioner Jorgensen will read it.
It's my pleasure to read this proclamation. As all my children attended Sacred Heart, so it's my pleasure. And it reads as follows. Whereas Catholic Schools Week is an annual national celebration of the important role that Catholic elementary and secondary schools across the country play in providing an education that emphasizes not only academics but also spiritual, moral, and social values. And whereas Sacred Heart Catholic School, Ottawa, Kansas, has been an academic institution in our community for more than 60 years. And whereas the mission of Sacred Heart School is to love God and one another, to help each other, and to learn for today and tomorrow. And whereas this year's theme is Catholic Schools, Learn, Serve, Lead, Succeed. Students and alumni of Sacred Heart Catholic School provide vital contributions to our community, and through a well-balanced curriculum, tools to master academic, social, and technological skills, and the cultural appreciation needed for success and lifelong learning. Sacred Heart students are well prepared to contribute positively to church and society through leadership and service. Whereas the continuing support of this community and its citizens contributes to Sacred Heart's ability to achieve this mission. Now therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas does hereby proclaim January 26th through February 1st, 2020 as Catholic Schools Week, and urges all citizens of Ottawa to recognize the many accomplishments and opportunities that this outstanding school provides to our community. Signed this 15th day of January 2020 by Tom Wigand, our new mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Would Ms. Doherty like to come forward and accept the proclamation? Yeah. Yeah, come on. Thank you for being here, and you're welcome to say a few words. Okay?
That was good, Paul.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. I am Mrs. Angie Doherty, and I teach 3rd grade. Thank you. That's fancy. At Sacred Heart School. I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for your proclamation recognizing Catholic Schools Week, January 26th to February 1st. During Catholic Schools Week, the students will be involved in many fun and educational activities, a few of which they would like to share with you now. And these are their ideas of what their favorite activities are and some of the things that will be going on next week or that week.
Hello, my name is Anthony Esquivel. During Catholic Schools Week, we will be playing bingo and winning prizes.
Good morning. My name is Macy Stone. During Catholic Schools Week, we will have a presentation from Mr. Nadler, who visits other countries. Then he teaches students about the country he visits.
Good morning. My name is John Anthony Siebert. During Catholic Schools Week, we will be having Sister Elaine Fisher come to school. She will teach us what it's like to be a sister and what she does in the convent.
Hello, my name is Braden Winter. We will have a spelling bee during Catholic Schools Week. If you win, you get $60 for the book fair.
Good morning. My name is Kinsley Beatty. During Catholic Schools Week, we will have guest readers come to school and read to us.
Hello, my name is Eddie Dotson. During Catholic Schools Week, we will have a book fair all week. You can buy books there.
Hello, my name is Allie Walker. During Catholic Schools Week, we will have a talent show where you can show what you can do.
Good morning. My name's Aubrey Mendel. During Catholic Schools Week, we will be doing Mix It Up Day. That is where we go to other classrooms and do lots of different things.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Emerson Blofis. During Catholic Schools Week, we will be eating pancakes in the morning and wearing pajamas to school for the whole day.
My favorite thing to do in Catholic Schools Week is playing bingo.
My favorite activity in Catholic Schools Week is the spelling bee.
My favorite activity during Catholic Schools Week is having Mr. Nadler come to school because I like learning about other countries.
My favorite thing about Catholic Schools Week is the visit with Mr. Nadler. He travels the world. One time he went to India. Guess what happened there? A wedding.
My favorite activity during Catholic Schools Week is pajama day and pancakes.
My favorite activity during Catholic Schools Week is a visit from Mr. Mr. Nadler because he teaches us about different countries.
My favorite thing to do during Catholic Schools Week is the book fair.
My favorite thing to do during Catholic Schools Week is the talent show. That is when we show our talent.
My favorite activity during Catholic Schools Week is having the seniors visit during lunch time and asking them questions like what their favorite color is or what their favorite book is and more.
Very good. That's excellent. Thank you, guys, for that. Would you like to come up and sit in our chairs? We'll stand up here. Would you get a picture of you guys that made the effort to come over here and tell us what you're doing this week or next Catholic Schools Week? Come on in. We only have 5 chairs. Somebody
bet we
use
can
them. Come on
put
in.
We have one.
Yeah, we can get 2 of them.
So we have
Come on
9
up.
students.
Come on up.
so-
Oh, then we've got enough to fit 2 in a
We
chair.
can fit them in there.
2 in a chair, 2 in a chair, take a chair.
2 in a chair.
Yeah.
Here. Allie and Eddie. Allie, go all the way to the end, sweetie.
Oh.
That way, go all the way.
Yeah, there you go.
Means you get to chair all by yourself. Oh, okay. All right, we're gonna scoot you up.
Scoot you up here to the counter.
Don't mess with my
Oh,
chair.
yeah. Once you come up, Miss Gordon.
Come on, come on.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, 1, 2, 3, smile. Do one more. 1, 2, 3, smile. Great.
All right.
Good job, guys. Have a good
Excellent.
time during
Thank
Catholic
you.
Schools Week. Have a good time. We will. Have a good time. Good job, guys. Excellent job. Way to go, Ellie.
You guys are welcome to stay around for the next 3 hours when we finish this meeting.
And I have a feeling some of those students may be sitting up here someday. Anyway.
Yeah, I hope so.
That's a very good
I
job.
hope so. Okay. Item number 13.
Mr. Mayor, we are on item number 12.
We should do 12 before 13, right? Okay. Why don't you do that?
A proclamation recognizing Kansas Day.
January 29th marks the 159th anniversary of Kansas becoming a state. Deanna Starsidik, Dean, Executive Director of the Franklin County Historical Society, will accept the proclamation, and Commissioner Kaler will read the proclamation.
And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas January 29, 2020 marks the 159th anniversary of the state of Kansas becoming a state. And whereas the land that would become Kansas became part of the United States with the acquisition of the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. And whereas Kansas entered a state as a free state during the presidency of Abraham Lincoln in 1861. And whereas the state seal contains the state motto ad astra per aspera, which is a Latin phrase that means to the stars through difficulties. This motto, adopted in 1861, refers not only to the pioneering spirit of the early settlers, but also to the difficult times that Kansas went through before becoming a state. John James Ingalls, a powerful voice in early Kansas history, suggested the motto as an expression as the aspiration of Kansas to reach the unattainable, its dream, to dream its realization of the impossible. Now, therefore, the governing body of the city of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby recognize January 29th, 2020 as Kansas Day, and reminds all citizens to celebrate the rich and powerful heritage of Kansas, a land of determination and strength. Signed this the 15th day, January 2020, by our Mayor, Tom Wigand.
Dan, what you got? Congratulations, Kansas.
Thank you. I want to do this. All right.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. A few years ago, a friend of mine who was a teacher told me a story about how she served on a committee that was planning the Kansas history curriculum for her school. And some of the teachers on this committee complained that they were spending too much time learning Kansas history. And finally, a teacher spoke up who was from out of state originally and said, you know, I'm from Minnesota and we studied Kansas history because Kansas history is that important to the history of this country. I think about that often, and also the fact that January 29, 1861 is kind of an arbitrary day because this land is so much older than 1861, and people have lived here so much longer than 1861. But 1861 was a declaration of Kansas's stance on slavery, and Kansas has a history of being pivotal on some of the most important things that happen in this country. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment and women's right to vote. Many Kansans don't realize that last year marked the 100th anniversary of when Kansas voted to ratify the amendment. And in fact, the suffragettes adopted the sunflower as one of their symbols as a nod to Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who worked on the suffrage movement as early as 1867 here in this state. Kansas's history is full of people who were indigenous to this area, were forced in this area, fled to this area, absconded to this area, came here for a little while and moved on, or came here and stayed. And as we approach Kansas Day, I encourage all of us to think about those people and the really amazing things they did, and sometimes the not so amazing things they did, and what we want to leave behind as our story as citizens, as communities, and as a state, because in the future they'll be looking at us for those histories and pivotal moments too. So thank you very much, and happy Kansas Day.
Thank you very much. Okay, now item 13.
A proclamation recognizing Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Monday, January 20th, 2020 is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Since 2002, the City of Ottawa has officially recognized Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a city holiday. Reverend Ernest Jones will accept the proclamation, and Commissioner Crowley will read the proclamation.
And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas on October 19, 1983, the U.S. Congress passed legislation making the third Monday of every January, beginning with 1986, the day America would honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with a national holiday. And whereas on January 16, 2002, the Ottawa City Commission made the King holiday an official city holiday. And whereas this is the first national holiday to honor an individual Black American. And whereas the King holiday affords all of us an opportunity to reflect upon the past while seeking hope, determination, and the opportunity to act upon the promise of the future. And now, therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby recognize Monday, January 20th, 2020 as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and reminds all citizens to remember that the legacy of Dr. King lives in each of us, and we are responsible to promote, teach, and live the American dream. Signed this 15th day of January 2020 by our Mayor, Tom Wygon.
Reverend Jones, would you come forward? Accept the proclamation. Good. Say a few words if you like.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. What an awesome opportunity to be here before you to speak about a man who has really paved the way for us to reflect about where we are and where we should go. For Ottawa to pause on this day to recognize the need for that type of equality is an honor in and of itself. I pray that we continue to strive toward that mark because we all need justice. Martin said, if a man has not found a reason to die, he has not found a reason to live. I pray that we all find that space in our heart to continue to push for the equality. And as that equality comes, then the love of God shows up. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very good message. We'll move to item 14.
Proclamation recognizing January as Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
Human Trafficking Awareness Month focuses attention on victims of human trafficking, a form of modern-day slavery and its far-reaching effects. Representatives with Willow Domestic Violence Center, including Martha Terhart, Franklin County Specialist, will accept the proclamation, and Commissioner Skidmore will read the proclamation.
And the proclamation reads this way. Whereas human trafficking is a modern form of slavery, it's one of the largest and fastest growing criminal industries in the world. It is based on recruiting, harboring, and transporting people for the purpose of exploitation. And whereas millions of men, women, and children around the globe, including here in Ottawa, Kansas, are subject to modern-day slavery, the cruel and inhumane practice of human trafficking. And whereas sex trafficking and labor trafficking occur in Kansas, and both adults and children of any gender, socioeconomic status, age, race, sexual orientation, or geographic location can become victimized. And whereas human trafficking includes sexual, verbal, emotional, and physical abuse and exploitation, and all forms of abuse carry long-term complex trauma implications. And whereas Kansas human trafficking laws define commercial exploitation of children, which does not require a showing of force, fraud, threat, or coercion, and references the existing statutory definition of human trafficking and aggravated human trafficking. And whereas the effects of human trafficking reach far beyond its victims and perpetrators, causing disruption in our schools, places of work, and neighborhoods. And now, therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby proclaim the month of January 2020 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and urges all citizens to speak out against sex and labor trafficking and exploitation, to support survivors of these heinous crimes, to encourage community leaders to hold offenders accountable, and to make preventable efforts a priority by hosting events, by creating policies at work, school, and home, and by supporting and participating in programs designed to reduce the eventually eliminate human trafficking as a societal problem. Signed this 15th day of January 2020 by our Mayor, Tom Wygant.
Would you like to say it?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Hannah Soror, and I'm the Rural County Specialist here, and I work with the Willow, and this is my coworker, Martha Terhar. And we just appreciate you recognizing this, and it definitely is a community issue within Ottawa and Franklin County. And I just wanted to say a few words about our services. So we provide services to people experiencing domestic violence or human trafficking, and all of our services are free and confidential. Some of those include just peer support, support in court, and we also have a safe shelter. So those are some of the main services that we can provide to survivors of human trafficking. And then I also wanted to mention that we do host and do community education about human trafficking and some of the red flags of how to look for it and how to support a survivor. So if you're interested in that, you can absolutely contact us, and we have some information on the back table over there. And then lastly, I just wanted to bring awareness to an event that's going on in Lawrence, and it is going to be on February 4th. But it's a public event put on by the Willow and Latte, which is the Lawrence Anti-Trafficking Task Force and Education Association. And human trafficking survivor Rebecca Bender will be speaking at that and telling her story. And so that is free, and that is at I believe noon on the 4th. If you need more information, you can find it on our Facebook page. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for the valuable work you do. I hope sometime you don't have a job in that area, but I've got a feeling you will have. So, but anyway, thank you for all the work you do. Item 15.
Request for approval of resolution designating authority and responsibility to the Chief Executive Officer of the Ottawa Police Department.
Is it Kalia?
Kalia?
Accreditation standards require a written statement issued by the governing body designating authority and responsibility of the Chief Executive Officer. And Chief Weingartner.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for placing this item on the agenda for today for approval. I'm going to digress a little bit from what I originally talked to. First, I just want to say well done to the students for your public speaking ability to come up in front of a room like this, being live streamed and live televised. I have no doubt, based on your performance, that someday you're going to be standing right here in this uniform doing my job or sitting in one of those chairs. So well done and congratulations on that recognition.
To do our job, all you have to do is learn to really read well, and you'll be up there.
And the work on the item before you today has been ongoing since last June. And I couldn't have planned it to be more timely to be placed on this agenda item for today in light of the other proclamations that before me. So as I was sitting back there preparing for what I was going to say, it made me feel really small to think that I'm the next item on this agenda to talk about this when such important items were placed before it. But they tie so perfectly together that it's going to be perfect. I'm going to read the memorandum just so the public is aware of why we're here, but I'm going to jump forward to one important statement in there, and it really ties in everything that Reverend Jones and the Willow folks that we work with so closely tie into, and why our role as the police department and why the role of the chief of police is so important in every single community in the United States, big or small. The police chief shall administer the Ottawa Police Department in a manner consistent with the ordinances of the City of Ottawa, the laws and Constitution of the State of Kansas, and the United States Constitution. Law enforcement's history with the Civil Rights Movement, with human trafficking, with enforcing the laws, is the line of defense between our citizens and keeping them safe and secure in their rights and responsibilities guaranteed to every citizen of the United States. Local law enforcement is the first line of defense in that in our country, and in my opinion, the most important, because we get to interact day to day with the community and the citizens that we impact. So thank you, Reverend Jones, for being here and for your speech on that and for the recognition of that day, and of course to our community for making it such an important. And I look forward to being in Lawrence on February 4th to attend that presentation. I think it's going to be extremely impactful for any of those that can attend. So thank you for that quick detour to why I'm here really today. The Ottawa Police Department is a CALEA accredited organization. In June, we were awarded our second law enforcement accreditation, which says that for the next 4 years, we'll remain compliant with standards that are considered the best practices in policy and procedure for law enforcement agencies in the United States and now beyond. But after our site-based assessment in June, the police department upgraded to what is referred to as the 6th edition standards for CALEA organizations. And every year, the CALEA organization updates their policies and procedures to adapt to the changing environment of law enforcement. So every year, we, as a accredited organization, do the same exact thing. The new standard that we're presenting to you today requires a written statement issued by a unit of government, a law or ordinance, or combination thereof designating the authority and responsibility of the Chief Executive Officer for the Ottawa Police Department. For the CALEA organization, the Chief Executive Officer of the Ottawa Police Department is the police chief. Through a Kansas coalition of CALEA accredited organizations, the department received copies of similar ordinances and ideas passed by cities in Shawnee and Overland Park who are already adhering to the 6th edition standards for some ideas on how we could present this. Based on our recommendations, a copy of the new police directive was created, and that led to the resolution being presented to you today. And based on a review and input from the city manager and the city attorney, the department is requesting the governing body approve a resolution designating the authority and responsibility of the Chief Executive Officer as the police chief. And the recommended language, which is prepared in front of you today on the resolution, states, "The commissioned law enforcement officer position of police chief shall be the chief executive officer of the police department. The police chief shall be responsible for the general management and authority of the police department. The police chief shall administer the Ottawa Police Department in a manner consistent with the ordinances of the City of Ottawa, the laws and Constitution of the State of Kansas, and the United States Constitution. The police chief shall be appointed by and subject to supervisory control by the city manager, and the police chief shall be subject to employment conditions set forth in the City of Ottawa handbook." And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the resolution on this matter.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate very much your predecessor, Chief Butler, starting this process of the CLIA accreditation, and Chief Weingartner for your continuing on that process. And so I think it's very important that we maintain that level of accountability. And so with that, I'll make the motion we approve item 15.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion with that? City, call the roll.
How do you vote, Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Wygant?
And I vote yes too. Motion passed. Thank you, Chief, for doing what you do and all the officers that serve us so well.
Thank you.
Again, I wish you weren't so busy.
That's okay.
But
And I also
thanks for
like-
being here.
Thank you. And I also like to thank our professional staff and Stacy Allen, our assistant accreditation manager, who did most of the work that was presented before you today. So I'm thankful to have her on our staff and doing such a great job for us. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Item 16.
Request for approval of ordinance amending Article 16, Public Use District of the zoning regulations, Ordinance 3501-05.
And Ms. Lee will give us the presentation, but the city's planning commission has reviewed the proposed amendments and recommends approval of the amendments. A public hearing was also held. There was no public comments. Ms. Lee.
Good morning. This is a fairly simple amendment that we've asked for to the zoning regulations in the public use district. That district is created to deal with those kinds of services that are offered by generally the public institutions. However, we realized when we were going through the permitted uses that there are a few institutions in our community that offer public services, if you will, but are private organizations. And that includes universities, colleges, and it just happens to be that as we're talking about Catholic Schools Week, I thought, if we had a freestanding piece of ground, it would apply to them as well. If we have zoned something in the public zoning district, then we want to be sure that we've provided for hospitals or fairgrounds, anything that is offered for the public but may change in ownership and go from a public organization to a private organization. And so that's really what the amendment is about. It adds the words "or nonprofit" relative to recreational facilities, private or public universities or colleges, and then in the general overall kind of leans towards any other kind of situation similar to that. There were no citizens that attended our public hearing or comments made other than the Planning Commission's endorsement of that amendment by recommending its adoption to you.
And this applies to like festivals, fundraisers, food trucks, those kinds of things during special events on those properties?
This ordinance really just deals with the zoning of the public use districts to allow them to provide services and still be zoned public where they would not be non-conforming in some way. I think you may be referring to the next ordinance that I'm going to tell you about.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve the request amending Article 16, Public Use District.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Call for a vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Mayor Wygant?
And I vote yes. Motion passed. Item 17.
Request for approval of ordinance amending Article 24, Supplemental District Regulation.
The city's planning commission has reviewed the proposed amendments and recommends approval of the amendments. A public hearing was also held. There were no public comments. Ms. Lee.
So, Mayor, this amendment is also fairly straightforward. We amended Section 9 to include, it said seasonal, and we added or temporary for retail sale of food and drinks such as snow cones, food, coffee. in a C3 district. But we also realized that our zoning regulations really didn't address the mobile food vendors that may be found in other places than they had been found before when we kind of talked about parks, et cetera. So we added a category for mobile food vendors governed by the city's licensing, and section 24501 of this article must be in C3, C4 public, I1 or I2. So it does allow for the fairgrounds. It does allow for if someone is doing an event at one of the industrial partners in the industrial park, or they're found in one of our other commercial kind of areas where it might be typical that there would be enough people to warrant a food vendor, whereas before it was kind of talked about parks. Because in the past, those kinds of things were at our events. Now, even tonight, I believe there's one in one location proposed, but this industry, mobile food vending, has evolved, and this is just our attempt to make sure that we're not challenged, or that the vendor is not challenged on a zoning classification. Because while we wouldn't have necessarily pursued it from an enforcement, someone else could ask us to, and we believe the community supports them being allowed, but with some provisions of our city licensing, and that those locations be approved.
So before they had to have a permit, or do they still have to have a permit? It's just
Mobile food-
covered in the decision?
Mobile food vending does require a license by the City of Ottawa, and the city clerk can address that if you want to know more about that. And we, the folks in the Community Development Department, only are involved when it comes to where are they going to be, to make sure that that location is safe, has a parking, they're picking up their trash. Some of the sections it referred to is really just that you're going to take care of the debris, litter, if you're on someone else's parking lot, that there's adequate parking for that, and that you're not going to create any kind of other issue from the community development standpoint. The clerk has other things that mobile food vendor has to comply with.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve the ordinance amending Article 24 supplemental district regulations.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? If not, call the vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Wygand?
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Item 18.
Request for approval of Memo of Understanding, MOU, with Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism.
This MOU allows the city to move the existing alley west of Main Street between 15th and 17th Streets away from privately owned property. Public Works Director Michael Halfley will make a presentation.
Good morning again, Mayor and Commissioners. As that introduction stated, this is the alley directly west of Main Street between the Prairie Spirit Rail Trail and Main Street, between 15th and 17th Streets. And primarily the work that we're referring to in this memorandum of understanding is moving basically the south half of that alley over closer to the Prairie Spirit Trail. So it will move the alley off of private property, move it over closer to the trail, but yet stay off of the trail. Subject to any questions, that's about the best I can explain it.
Mr. Hafley, I hadn't asked in the past, but will this require a new curb cut at 15th Street?
We cannot move the alley entrance.
Okay.
Because it would take a lot of extensive work because there's a storm inlet right to the west of that entrance. So
But there will be a visual difference for those
there will be
a
a lot of difference. The alley will actually have to curve back over to that entrance. So
Will there be a drainage ditch between where there isn't one now?
We will have to put some drainage in there, make sure everything flows. We don't want to disrupt the flow. We haven't put any engineers, we haven't put any survey to it yet or anything. The first thing we had to do is get the memorandum.
Okay.
So would we anticipate that the public may not visually see something for several months?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And we do intend on doing this work with our city crews, so.
Okay. Any other questions?
Now, Michael, the existing alleyway to the south end, and what will become of it? The one
It will revert back to the property owners.
I mean, are we doing anything to prevent traffic on that, or could people use that still, or is that going to be?
We will probably try to take the gravel that's there and use that on the west side where we're going to move it, and then fill that back in with dirt. But there will be a travel path there farther west than what there is now.
Okay, good.
Okay, any other questions? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve item number 18, I'm sorry.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve item 18. Call for the vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaler?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Wygand?
And I vote yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Report by the city managers.
So, Commissioners, a lot of proclamations this morning, important proclamations. But just as a little note of history, the second most important thing about January 29th is that one of our commissioners and former mayor, his mother had the presence of mind to have him born on Kansas Day, and that kind of predestined him to become a Kansan by choice. So, happy birthday early.
Was that in the 1800s or?
Well, I wasn't going to get into the age thing. So what I'd like to know is, we have a model for our state. Did your mother have a model for you when you were? Well, don't say it.
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, that is the entire report. It's the former mayor's birthday, okay, on Kansas Day. Commissioners, Mike, you have anything? Sure. Excuse me.
Just briefly, I just want to say how well behaved the children are today. I think when I was in your age, I'd have been totally frustrated and wanted to get out and do something else. But thanks to you all for being here and for how well behaved everybody's been here. So thank you for coming. Come back anytime.
Yes.
No report.
Ms. Kaler?
I was thinking how, when I was looking at our proclamations, I was thinking how it almost went backwards from like a micro or a macro level to a micro level, from human trafficking, which is really crimes against just people, and how wrong that is. But how Martin Luther King Jr. stood up and said that it's not okay to have crimes against people. And in Kansas, we said as a state, we're not okay with it either. And then I know, because my kids went to Catholic school too, that you're not for crimes against people either, and that we can celebrate the gifts that every single person has. So it's been a really good meeting. Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
I have none.
And I also want to echo what the other commissioners have said. You guys have been great this morning. You did a great job of presenting. Come back anytime and stay in touch with your government and study that a little bit once in a while. It's very, very important that we have future leaders and people involved in our community to make it the best possible place for you guys to have your education, graduate, get a job, make a living, raise a family here, and bring your kids in here someday. So welcome that. And we did have a good meeting for the new mayor. We'll get this thing smoothed out eventually, but it was okay. Nothing else to come to? Oh, yeah, we got to, okay, see, we're smoothing out. We have a joint city-county meeting today at lunch at the USD 290 district office. And then Sunday, January 20th, is that Sunday? Yeah, that's Sunday.
Monday.
Monday
Mr. Mayor.
is Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and the city offices will be closed, but Sunday at 2 o'clock, is that right, Reverend Jones? We're going to have a special celebration of Martin Luther King and have the awards given for the essays written in that regard. So the public is welcome to that, and that's at 2 o'clock Sunday at the Municipal Auditorium. Okay. Of course, the study session Monday will be canceled also. The 22nd, the local Kansas Municipality Local Government Day is at 2 p.m. In Topeka. Some of us will be attending that. January 25th is the annual chamber banquet. That's next Saturday evening at 5:30 at the Bottle House. January 27th, study session at 4 p.m. here at City Hall. And then February 3rd, study session 4 p.m. here. 5th is our regular meeting at 7 p.m. in City Hall. Is there anything else to come before we close this at almost 14 to 11? Over.